All right, well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Applos webinar, educational webinar. Hopefully, everybody's doing great out there. My name is Dan Kimball, and I will be leading our time together talking about tips and tricks to optimize your year-end giving. And we are so glad you are with us. Just to kind of get things started off and to get things right, going right, let's just make sure that you can see my screen. You should be able to see the tips and tricks screen as well as hear my voice. So just a couple of you could just kind of type in the question box and let me know that you can both see my screen and hear my voice clearly. That would be great. Good. Awesome. Cool. Very good. Great. Thank you, everybody. Good. All right, so here we're going to get fired up again. Once again, my name is Dan. If you are new to Applos webinar series, we want to welcome you. If you are somebody that's been with on an Applos webinar series before, we want to welcome you back, no matter which part of the country or world you're tuning in from. We are so glad you're with us. We value what you do as a nonprofit leader, whether you are a church, a ministry, a nonprofit, whatever space you come from, we welcome you and are so glad you're here. We're going to spend about 45 minutes together and then 50 minutes or so, and then we'll do some Q&A. Just for a few other housekeeping matters, just so you know, we do record all of our webinars. So if for some reason you have to check out early, or maybe you want to hear this again, there's something that you liked about this, or whatever that may be, we will record the webinar and make that available. So you should receive an email probably, because it's Thursday, probably early next week, letting you know how to access that, as well as sharing all the information and slides that are made available to you. So that's good. A little bit about myself. My name is Dan Kimball. I'm a product specialist here at Applos. I spent 20 years in the fundraising field doing what a lot of you do, which is lead and run nonprofits, raise money, and work with people, and have the privilege of working here at Applos, specifically helping nonprofits hopefully be more successful through their fundraising and use of donor management products. So that's who we are. We are a accounting and donor management software company, but we, as a free service, offer training and hopefully tools for you. So that's one of the joys about being at Applos, is you do not have to be an Applos customer to access our educational content. We share that for you for free. If for some reason you are looking for some software help, you can certainly get back to us on that, but that is not why we're here. So to kind of get things going, we want to kind of get to know you a little bit. So we're going to play with some technology for a few minutes. I'm calling this Getting to Know You. You can sing the song in your own head if you want. I call this Polls, Surveys, and a Cute Animal. Actually, the cute animal is just simply to put a little smile on your face to get this Thursday going in the right direction, because who doesn't love a good-looking puppy? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to select a poll here. I'm going to ask you guys to, I'm going to say, so I'm going to ask you guys to, hopefully, if you in your screen, do you see the poll? And if you would just go ahead and answer that question real quick. And the question is, what do you currently have planned for your year-end giving? So I'm going to have you spend a minute. Thank you. Great. We're going to do this. I'm actually going to ask you about 3 or 4 questions, and this is to just kind of get a sense of kind of where you're at. I can see about 50% of you guys have nothing planned yet. That's interesting. By the way, there's no right or wrong answers here. This is just simply just to kind of get a gauge. We have about 18% that have a Giving Tuesday campaign. Very good. We have 11% that have a holiday themed giving, and 7% something else. Okay, that's good. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close this poll. That was very helpful, by the way. And let's go. So let's just real quickly say, how many contacts does your organization have? And so what that means is that if you have an Excel spreadsheet, if you have another software, what are you guys currently looking at right now, contact wise? And what this helps us do is kind of gauge kind of what size organizations you are working with. Okay, so we have about 70. So right now we're sitting about 62%, 60% that are under 500. Okay, very good. Again, nothing right or wrong. Contact can be simply people that are connected to your nonprofit ministry or church. It doesn't have to necessarily be a donor, but somehow are connected. Okay, very good. And let's do this one. Can your supporters currently give online? If you don't mind just spending a second on that. Good. Yes. Very good. Looks like a lot of you guys do that. Okay. So a few of you that are accepting online. Again, there's no right or wrong answer on these. It's just kind of a way for us to get a sense where everybody's coming from. Really good. Kind of getting through these pretty quick here. All right. Let's go ahead and close this poll. We'll just do one or two more, and we'll kind of get going from there. If you're comfortable, I'd like to know kind of what your annual revenue is as an organization. What is your annual revenue? If you feel like, and again, this is just for our own knowledge. Don't have to worry about anything. We don't know who's voting what, so anybody's worried about that. Okay. What's really interesting about this question, for those of you who may or may not know this, there's about 1.8 million nonprofits in the United States, which might seem like a lot. And actually, the large majority of nonprofits in the United States actually have budgets of annual budgets of less than $1 million. So it's one of the reasons why Aplos exists, is a lot because we really have tried to aim to serve a lot of the small to medium nonprofits out there. And let's just do this last one, and then we'll get going. So just would like to know what do you currently use for software, if you feel comfortable answering that. So what do you currently use? Okay, got some Aplos customers. Great. QuickBooks, Excel. Yeah, awesome. Okay, we'll do about another minute or so. Give you guys a chance to do that last one, and then we'll get fired up here and going. Very cool. Thank you guys very much. And wasn't it worth it just to see a cute puppy? That's funny. Good. All right. Well, very, very, very good. So let's talk about our year in giving a little bit. The format of this is going to be was we're going to do just some kind of high level, some stats, kind of what year in giving is, and then I'm going to leave you with hopefully some practical tips, some things that maybe you can apply right away if you're not doing anything, and trying to let you know that it's not too late. It's never too late to focus on some year-end giving. And like all my yes, puppy, thank you, Susan. Like all my webinars, we are Q&A. I tend to kind of like to wait to the end to do Q&A, but if I see something pop up, I do check these from time to time, the questions. So feel free to punch in your question, and we'll go back and get at them. So just by way of introduction, just know that that 40% of your donations could be happening during the last 6 weeks of the year if you use a variety of fundraising channel. And as we approach our final weeks of the calendar year, this is a time. This becomes a season, the fall season, the holiday season, the Christmas season, whichever you may be coming from, is a time when many Americans make those donations. They fulfill pledges, or they just respond to year-end appeals. I don't know if you're like me, but I already just in the last couple of weeks have seen an increase in local charities, food banks, things like that, who are starting to ask for appeals. So this is a time. It's called year-end giving for a reason. And what I want to kind of, by way of introduction, encourage you, no matter where you're coming from on this, is now is the time to attract new donors, collect some unpaid pledges, and And it's an important time to see that donors feel and see the efforts that you're taking and doing out there. So what we're going to do is we're going to cover the importance of year-end giving and give you some ideas of how to boost and maximize your year-end campaigns. When I got into fundraising about 20 years ago, really the year-end giving was really just about what they call a direct mail piece, which is that envelope that you open up that's usually about 3 or 4 pages long, and it's got another envelope to give, and it's got a story or some history of the organization, and that was it. But as you know that the number of ways, or what we call channels, we'll use the word channels, those are the different avenues in which people can give now, has really drastically changed. Just want to kind of remind folks the amount of interest and money that's out there, regardless of what people think. The bulk of the donations that come out there come from individuals. So this is the 2016 kind of fundraising chart that I love to share with folks. Last year in 2016, there was $390 billion given to philanthropy or to charities across the United States. And as you can see, 72% of that comes from individuals. So this is good news. So no matter the size of your charity or the size of your nonprofit or the size of your ministry or church, there's opportunities to gain some traction out there. And on the right-hand side, you can see over here, I think my mouse is showing here, you can see what Americans are generally interested in. So I'm sure you all fall into one of these places. It's not saying that one does something better than the other. It just kind of tracks what people are interested in. So, more than 174 million adult Americans plan to give money to charity between Thanksgiving and year end. Between 35 and 42% of online giving happens in November, December. Some people call it the Super Bowl of fundraising, meaning that it just seems like we really gear up. A lot of people raise the bulk of their dollars. Giving in December brings in about 1/3 of the fundraising dollars out there. And for many organizations, this is a critical time. This is when they can really make or break their own budgets for the year and then start to set their budgets for next year as well. And so it becomes, a pretty important time. More than 20% of all giving for the entire year occurs in the last 48 hours of the calendar year. That's kind of a stunning stat for me. Personally, for me, the nonprofits I've worked at over the years, there was always, a lot of action leading up. But that week after Christmas and New Year's is always kind of an interesting time. So it'd be interesting to, hear from some of you about that at some point. Just a few more, 28% of nonprofits raise between 26 and 50% of their annual funds from their year-end ask. So this really is a critical time. So what I want to say is that if you do year-end, hopefully you'll walk away today with maybe a couple ideas, or maybe it's even just an affirmation that you keep going. If you're not doing anything, please don't drop your head and feel like, it's the end of the world, because it's not. I think we'll hopefully give you some tips and tricks of some things you can do right now to get going. 74% of adults plan to make a charitable contribution this holiday season. This is one that I really think is important. On the bottom is the number of organizations. 22% will contribute to just one organization, whereas 55% will spread their contributions across 2 to 3 organizations. So it's important to know that, don't be intimidated or feel or not do something that you think, everybody's giving to the food bank or to the rescue mission or to the church or to the hospital or something like that. A lot of people do spread out their giving at this time of year. So I think those are all really important things to remember. So there's a lot of benefits by having a year-end giving program. About 50% of you logged in today during our polls and our puppies and said that about 50% of you don't have anything planned yet. So there's some, the holidays do tend to inspire people. It for whatever reason, it seems to be a natural season of giving and charity, and all the hustle and bustle of the holidays. For whatever reason, it does draw out that goodness in people, and where of course, donations flow. Donors are sometimes seeking last minute or year-end tax deductions, though as a fundraising professional over the years, I find that that's not usually the motivation, but it does exist. There are a lot of people that get to the end of the year and they think, oh, this, maybe, for example, here in the Central Valley where Applos is located, we have a lot of farming influence here. And so we do have a lot of folks that base their giving on how their ag year went. So that, so there are some tax implications. So be thinking about that. Don't throw that out, as well as don't make that the only motivation. And I don't particularly suggest or encourage you to open an appeal or a year in giving program with, hey, you need a tax year in deduction. I don't think that's as effective, but it does exist. Donors sometimes have money left over in their philanthropic budgets, businesses especially. Some have a use it or lose it. Year-end donations do tend to be larger than gifts made during other times of the year. This is a real interesting time in the United States because of the amount of national tragedies we've had nationally with fires and floods. Here in California, we've had, of course, massive wildfires in Northern California. And then, of course, in Houston, Florida, and Puerto Rico with the hurricanes. So what's happening is disaster relief is at a real high. But people still want to give locally. So, just kind of be navigating that. And if you have some questions about that, we can get into that a little bit at the end. It's also an excellent way to tell your story and communicate the mission of your organization. Year-end giving is an excellent tool to tell donors how your past gifts were used and highlight success. And this is really, really critical as you're communicating, whether it's a simple Facebook post or an email campaign, that you really get in. We'll dive into this a little bit more in the webinar, but that you really highlight what's going on out there, and not just the term that gets used sometimes is donors don't want to feel like an ATM machine, where you're just asking them for another 20 kind of thing. They really want to know what's happening with the organization that they've chosen to partner with. And then last, year-end giving can be a potential gold mine for your organization. And what we mean by that is that's a way to introduce people to what the work you're doing and possibly engage for future down the road. So who are we talking about when we talk about what kind of donors are out there? Who are you looking for? Well, the first is your annual donors. Those are people who are maybe giving you money on a regular annual basis, whether it's early in the year, or many organizations have people that do specifically give November, December. Next is new prospects. Again, those are people who are maybe in your system, in your Excel spreadsheets, or people that are just learning about you, and they're going to give for the very first time. Libunts and Sibunts, as you see the fun little character on the right. A Libunt and a Sibunt is not a baseball term, but a Libunt is someone who gave last year, but unfortunately not this year or this. A Sibunt is some year, but unfortunately not this year. Those are a really, really important group of people that exist in all of your organizations, whether you have an Excel spreadsheet, whether you have a big box of files or old check receipts. At some point, people gave to your organization and they stopped. They could have moved. They could have just forgotten. They could have gotten mad. Whatever that reason, every organization has an opportunity to go after those old donors or those past donors. And then prospective major donors, people that maybe are giving at a certain level and have the opportunity to give a little bit more. Last but not least, converting volunteers to donors. I actually do a whole webinar on how to work with volunteers and how to convert volunteers to donors. If you have an organization that has a lot of volunteers, consider getting them a little bit more involved on the financial end. And I don't believe that it necessarily ruins that relationship. And in fact, volunteers are more apt to give quicker than somebody who never has given, if that makes sense. Okay, so let's talk about channels a little bit. So as we're thinking about year-end giving, we want to talk about the different channels. Like I said, kind of in the introduction, we we have different channels now. Whereas before it used to be the old direct mail or snail mail. And then, of course, that still exists. It's still a powerful tool. We call it snail mail. I got three pieces of mail yesterday personally. One of the things I do as a test is from about middle of September through January 1st, I actually take everything I get and I put it in a box. I collect it, I save it. And then in January, I go through it and I evaluate it, and I count the amount I get, and two, I look at kind of what people are doing. So it's still a really effective tool. I do want to just say as a caveat, though, is that snail mail does take some time and some planning. So we're sitting at about the middle of October now, and so if you're planning on doing any kind of snail mail, you probably want to get going on that, like now kind of thing, because you figure it's going to take you, a couple weeks to write proof and get a letter that everyone's happy with, especially if you need to get it approved by a board or a group, somebody above you, that kind of thing. And then, of course, you need to, work with a mail house or get letters printed and all of the things that go involved. And we can give you some more information off this webinar if you want on that. But I would just say that snail mail is really effective if it's actually out in the mail by early November. I like to actually do pre-Thanksgiving personally for snail mail, but it's not too late. Especially with technology now, you can do a lot quicker than you used to be able to. Of course, email campaigns is a great request channel. That's your constant contact. That's your MailChimp. And if you are an Applos customer, we actually have an email campaign builder within our software. That's the ability to send out an email to someone, much similar, kind of thing. Of course, there's donor giving page and websites. Very effective to direct people. You see here this example on the right where you can put a link on your website or a place where you direct people, hey, check out our website, kind of thing. And then there's social media such as Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, blog, Snapchat, all of that. It's overwhelming, I know. And so if you're old school and you don't quite know what to do with that, again, these are just multiple channels. You don't necessarily have to do one or the other. More and more people are saying that you should do multiple, meaning do a little bit of everything, but certainly pick one if you can. You know what? Phone calling is still a really effective way, and we'll get into that a little bit. But that is a very specific request channel where organizations will call, not cold calling, but they might be calling a group of a list of people that already support your organization and talk to them that way. And then last but not least, mobile giving. And I'll be honest with you. I don't. I'm not an expert in mobile giving. In fact, in November we'll be doing a webinar on digital marketing. But I do know that these text to give programs and some of those are effective. Again, it's just giving different donors different choices, especially the age and type of donors they are. So, what are some ways to boost your year-end giving program? Well, first of all, set a specific target or goal or campaign. I think that's the first thing you can do. If you are amongst the group of folks who said, I've not done anything and I'm not sure kind of where to start, well, set a goal. Do something that is clear, measurable, and realistic. I think one of the great mistakes that nonprofits sometimes make, and churches do this as well, is that they're focusing too much on the other guys. What's the neighbor doing down the street? Set a goal that works for your organization based off of your budget and how well you know your donors. You can stretch it a little bit, but make sure it's clear, it's measurable, and it's realistic. If it's $5,000, great. How are you going to measure it and make sure that that's realistic based off of what you've done before? If you've never done a year-end campaign that's targeted, first thing you might want to do, go back to your last couple of years and just add up the amount of donations that came in between the months of, say, November 1st and December 31st. Just add it up. And if you know that you collected, say, $8,000 for the last couple of years in those 2 months, then maybe you want to set a $10,000 goal or something like that. What is it you're trying to accomplish? Are you just trying to raise cash, or are you trying to raise awareness? What's your ideal end result going to be? Is it to fund a particular project? Is it to help boost the general fund, which is all fine, but make sure that you're very clear, and it's just not, well, everybody's doing year end, so we have to as well. Who are you trying to reach? I think this is really critical. Decide who your key audience is before planning your campaign, and we're going to talk about segmenting that in just a second. And what do you want them to do? One of my biggest frustrations is when I get a piece of a request of any kind, whether it's by social media or by mail or even by email, and there's not I have to read or work a lot to figure out what it is I want to do. We have a food bank here in the town in which Aplos is located, and I get pieces from them. I appreciate the fact that I know very early on in reading their requests what they want me to do, how much they want me to give, and how I need what my actions are. So have a clear action to your supporters. Will they be asked to donate a specific amount or pledge a recurring gift? That kind of thing. Don't leave them guessing. And what is the best way to reach my audience? So if you, for example, are a new nonprofit and maybe a lot of your support base is younger, or they say they're millennials or they're in their 30s, maybe you want to think about doing something more online focused. The younger audience really does respond well to social media such as Facebook and Instagram. If you've got an older audience, if you're a church or a ministry and maybe a lot of your donation base comes from 50 and above, they're going to appreciate I don't want to say old fashioned because that's not true, but they're going to maybe appreciate a letter or a handwritten card kind of thing. So once you've identified your audience and calls to action, think about the best way to reach them. And then we've talked about this a little bit, but I really want to encourage you to use a multi-channel approach whenever possible. Multi-channel means that you want to do a little bit of everything, a little email, do some direct mail, do some phone calls. So you don't just put everything into one basket. If you do multiple channels, you're more likely to bring in more money relying on than just one channel alone, because you're getting different audiences involved. It's like, for lack of a better example, it's like, if you serve one kind of food, it's like you're giving people sort of a buffet. So you're meeting different needs of different people. And the big thing is coordinate the campaigns. So if you're using a multiple channel, you want to coordinate that the campaign reinforces the same message. So you don't have, say, an email that's doing one campaign along with a Facebook page that has another campaign. You want to have everything blend together so it's the same message. It's just a different channel, if that makes sense. And be sure and always talk about your website donation page if you have that. If you don't have that, we really want to encourage you to look into that and get something set up right away. And we here at Aplos can help you with that. But keep referring people back to your website, a place where they can learn more about do that. If you cannot afford it to do a direct mail piece, or you're pressed for time, and you're just now figuring this out, make sure that you mention the campaign on your website, social media, and any newsletter that goes out before December 31st. The great thing about online newsletters is that with the technology that's out right now, is I really think you can bust out a newsletter pretty quickly and get an effective message and get folks to give pretty fast. That's the great thing about the negatives about technology is that it's overwhelming, it's clunky, there's too much of it. The good news is that you can get a message out pretty darn quickly. Just look at GoFundMe. You want to talk about effective fundraising, the amount of millions of dollars that has already been raised online for some of the recent tragedies that we've been talking about is really quite stunning and quite amazing. I can't emphasize this enough, but using compelling stories and photos, identify stories about the impact your organization is making in your community or where you serve. If you're just talking about your organization and how needy your organization is, and you're forgetting to talk about some of the impact it's already making, I think you might be selling yourself a little short of some opportunity. Keep especially your email campaigns and your online campaigns, keep things short, 2 to 3 paragraphs. Use one story per message. Sometimes I think organizations try to tell too much. I think it's okay to focus on just one story, one person. Our local children's hospital here in the Valley does a really good job with that. Well, they'll have sort of a little champion, and you'll get to know that champion, and they'll do multiple stories about that one particular young person, which I think is really great. Awesome. And Latrice, I see your question, and I will address that here in a little bit. So keep asking those questions, and we'll do some Q&A on that. So thank you for asking that, but I won't forget you. And this is also a great time to tout your achievements. I know that some people will say, don't talk about yourself, but talk about your donors. But what donors want to know is what their money has done. So it's kind of a fine balance a little bit. Your story should focus on the people you help and the memories you create for people who live and work in the community. I love that. I don't remember where I heard that, but I remember writing it down. So your story should focus on the people you help and the memories you create. I like, for nonprofits to go through an exercise, which is imagine your community without your nonprofit, church, or ministry. Think about that for a minute. Just take a minute and think about what would your community be like if you didn't exist? And that's a great way to kind of then turn the coin and say, how do we tell the community how important of the work it is that we do? Whether it's in the people field, education field, youth-based, church-based, whatever that might be. And then highlight 1 or 2 donors or businesses and how are they helping make a difference. I think that's what you do when you're doing that is encouraging others to say, hey, look at this, folks. They do it, so therefore we can too. And one more on that other thing, if you're going to highlight a donor or a business, make sure it's not always has to be like the super donor, the big, the $1 million, maybe you don't even have one of those, but make it somebody or a business that other people can relate to, a small business that maybe did a small fundraiser for your nonprofit, and maybe they only raised $1,000. Well, that's a big deal. And of course, be sure and accept online gifts. And donate now. Again, for those of you who are not doing it, would really like to encourage you to get on that. You don't have to spend a lot of money, and we can help you at Applos with that. But be sure your website can receive online gifts. Make it easy to give. If you have somebody in your organization that handles your website, or what we call a webmaster, be sure and get this feature on there today. You really want the Donate Now button to be prevalent on your homepage. Can visitors easily find where to click and donate? Make the Donate button big. Make sure the Donate Now button is easy to spot. And there's lots of good articles on the internet about this. And I personally will refer you to some other articles if you need be. At the end of our time, I'll leave you some contact info, and we'll go there. And then be sure and test your online site throughout the holiday season, because there's nothing more frustrating for someone to go online. I actually went to give to a charity not too long ago, and I had to email the development person, and they were like, "Oh, I'm sorry, we just changed our website and our servers and blah 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 blah, and didn't realize it wasn't up and running yet." And that's going to really eliminate some potential donations. So you yourself need to make sure you're going online and making sure it's working throughout the holiday season. Okay, so online giving, can't encourage that enough. All right, here's an example. Tell your story. Tell people what you want them to do. One of the organizations I have just a deep, deep, deep amount of respect for is an organization called Charity Water. Maybe you already know them, maybe you don't, but I think they do one of the best jobs out there in terms of communicating a very clear message letting people know exactly what you want them to do while telling their story at the same time. This is actually taken from a Twitter feed, which is Clean Water is Changing Lives for Kids in Developing Countries Around the World. Learn how you can help. Now, first of all, what you do is focus in on that picture. And what is that picture communicating? And one of the things is I think I love about Charity Water the most is the powerful photo images they use. And I want to highlight and say that please don't just say, well, Charity Water is a big organization and they have millions of dollars, therefore they can do this. No, this is a photo that anybody can do. What I really appreciate is they've kind of gone away from the tragic, depressing, the dog behind the bars kind of look and feel, because I don't think guilting people into giving is the way you should go. I think, and here they give a very clear link. It's a very short and sweet message. And I'm going to try something here, and hopefully it's not going to mess us up too much. But I'm actually going to go to their website if I can, and I'm going to actually show you their website. I know I'm might be throwing you off a little bit, but hopefully this works. And see here, this is their website. I love this website because it's clean. It's easy to navigate. I'm just not going to go through too much of it. Do you see the donate now? What do you want to do? Do you want to give once? Do you want to give monthly? Do you want to sponsor? Do you want to fundraise? So I would encourage you to bookmark this website and use it maybe for yourselves potentially as kind of a something that you can do as well. Okay, so with that, we'll kind of keep plugging away here. So next thing I want you to think about is clean up your mailing list. And by the way, I do see a couple of you have asked questions, which is awesome, William and Latrice, and I will address those questions during our Q&A. But I appreciate the question very much. Okay, and we will talk about those. So clean up your mailing list. Review both your email and your regular mailing list. Determine which one is larger, newer, more complete. And I think this is a good time of year to do that. I want to talk about segmentation a little bit here. Segment your mailing list if possible. Know who your donors are and who you're mailing to. This is probably, I put it in bold, believe it or not, on purpose. That wasn't a mistake. But I did this because I cannot emphasize this enough. And you can do this, I mean, even if you're using an Excel spreadsheet, but it's obviously a lot easier, excuse me, if you are using donor software of some kind. But what segmentation is it's sending different appeals and mail-ins to different types of people. In other words, if you have a group of people who are donating $50 a month every month for, say, the past 2 years, I think you want to give them a different kind of mailing than somebody who just gave for the first time or who hasn't given in 2 or 3 years. And so what you can do is very easily, it takes a little bit of work, but separate your mailing list based off of groups. It could be based off groups you've created, such as volunteers or regular donors, first-time donors, lapsed donors, maybe it's board members, maybe it's alumni, those kinds of things. So know who your donors are and who you're mailing to. A lot of organizations who are doing this are actually telling different stories to a different group of donors that they can identify with. Still the same campaign, but it might be a different story to a different group. So I can't emphasize this enough about working through those email lists, making sure they're up to date, making sure you've gone through people who have moved. Are you getting a lot of bounce backs, meaning people's emails are incorrect? And a lot of times that's just a matter of going through those email lists and just making sure that it's spelled right, like there wasn't a typo or there's not a period in the wrong place or an at the wrong place, those kinds of things. So try to be effective as you can on that. That's a good way to also utilize volunteers. Just getting them in the office and having them go through and helping you update. And this is where good software really does come to help you. But the segmenting part, I would just want to emphasize enough is as if you as a donor feel like the nonprofit is just talking to you, it will go a long ways. Personalize your email list. Look at your email list and determine how many first and last names are associated, so that you can personalize any solicitation. I would personally always rather a Dear Dan or Dear Dan and Suzanne, which is my wife's name, over a Dear Friend or Dear Sir or Hi. You know what I mean? So see if you can add more names and personalize those lists. Look for duplicates. Make sure you copy information into the right record before deleting any addresses. So that's just kind of some what we call, just house cleaning kind of things. You want to review your giving levels and ask for reoccurring gifts. Create simple forms. Again, we talked about this already a little bit, but make your donation form simple. Don't ask for more information than you need. I don't like to fill out tons and tons of stuff. It starts to get overboard for me for the sake of a donation. You just want to get the basics, maybe a name, an email, and an address, and then their appropriate billing information. You can go back later and get spouse information and other kinds of things that you're trying to do. But sometimes in those donation forms, people are asking for a little too much. Can the donors set up a recurring payment or enter a message? I think that's going to be really helpful. And again, there's really good online donation forms that will help you do that as we go. Consider adding a photo and a caption to the form. Again, link to the Donate Now button. So you kind of see the theme here. Stories, simple. Don't send them to another page. Make sure you link them to or directly to a Donation Now page. And what that means is that if you send them to a website that has them go to another page to get to another page to get to the Donate Now button, after 2 or 3 clicks, donors might give up or say, you know what, this is too much work. Or what happens is they might get a message or get distracted, they leave, and then they just forget. So you want to get them through the process as quick as you can. And then, of course, the call to action is donate. You can tell a great story. You can say how wonderful your organization is doing, and then forget to ask them at the end to donate. I'm not going to read all these points here. These will be available for you on the recording. You can obviously see this, and please don't. If you're trying to write some of this down, we will have this for you. We'll do the recording and give you copies of the slides. But crafting a strong appeal, again, this is almost a whole webinar in itself, but make sure that your appeal is equal parts emotion and urgency. You want to pull people into your message with a compelling story and then give them an action. And there's tons of articles out there about how to write a strong appeal letter. I think I already have a question about some samples. I think, Lincoln, you asked about a sample campaign letter. Yes, I will make available a campaign letter in the follow-up, and I'll have that available. And or if you want to email me directly at the end, I will have that available for you, so I can provide you with a sample. In fact, what I'll probably do is do it as an attachment when I send out the information about this recording. So show how donations will be used. This $100 is going to do X, Y, and Z. Tell them the great things they've done and the wonderful things that will bring in more support. Be specific. Don't assume with your donors. I think, again, you just really want to be very clear and direct with them. Keep it simple. Remember, December is an extremely busy month for everyone. So make a strong, compelling, yet concise case for why people should give. I don't like to spend a lot of time getting to the point. I'm a more direct person. But some people different. And remember, it's not all about you. Instead of talking only about how great you are, please share stories about your donors, volunteers, and other beneficiaries of your organization. I can't emphasize sharing a photo enough. I think one powerful photo can go a long way in stirring emotion. And again, that's the great thing about this day we live in, is that you don't have to hire a professional photographer. You can, just snapping a photo of a group of volunteers reading with a group of children will send a powerful message more than a picture of the executive director. If that, I mean, we all love you out there, and I know that you guys are great and very good-looking nonprofit leaders, but people want to see the work you're doing, not necessarily your office staff. And then finally, make it personal. People give more when they feel they're helping another person that they can relate. And that's why I really kind of discourage, don't go in big numbers. We all know that there's, if you're a statistical person and you can talk about there's, 3,000 people a day that are, hungry or dying or whatever that is, drill down, talk about, how this gift helped this one person become a better person in your community or something like that. So focus on one person's story. Sometimes in the holiday season, it just gets really busy. It gets really crazy. I don't know about you, but as a nonprofit worker, I get kind of overwhelmed. And so this is a Hawaiian sea turtle that has absolutely nothing to do with my presentation other than I think he's really cool. So there you have it. Just a couple last points, and then we'll do some Q&A because I know we're doing okay on time, but a couple other things. And again, this particular webinar is a little text heavy, so I kind of apologize, but I just knowing that year-end giving is important, we have a number of points we wanted to hopefully walk away with some practical application on this. You got to have a thank you strategy. So you can do a great job on the front end. You can put out an awesome appeal or an awesome email, but you got to have a thank you strategy. First of all, write a thank you now. In other words, don't wait till the gifts are coming. Get a thank you letter ready to go now. Everyone who gives a gift, whether by check or online, should receive a paper thank you. What this is not your automated email that generates when somebody gives. This is a personalized thank you. So online givers should get a thank you letter that does not look or sound like a receipt within a week. That does not look or sound like a receipt within a week. So it means within a week, it needs to be a nice thank you letter, not just here's for your tax guy kind of thing. Some experts say you want to thank donors 3 times. First, when they make a donation. Next, when they get your email receipt. And then when you get a thank you letter in the mail. So, if you're doing this online, they're going to get those automated ones, but then you want to make sure you have some kind of follow-up. I'm not saying that that's just going to be true for all organizations, but I do find it to be a good something to stretch for as an organization. Maybe you want to assign a volunteer to send out thank you letters once a week during the last six weeks of the year. Because this is an important time, you want to stand out a little bit. Automate your thank you emails. You can do this if you have an email campaign builder like either Applos, Constant Contact, or MailChimp. You can create some templates that will automatically send out a thank you email. But then you want to follow up with a more personalized one later. Tweet about it. Once they've made a donation, make it easier for donors if they're comfortable to say, hey, I just gave to XYZ organization. I would encourage you to too. So give them some ways to promote your organization in the process. Giving donors an easy opportunity to talk about their involvement with you can help spread the message and might result in other people saying, well, gosh, if they give to this organization, I might too. And then handwritten thank you cards and make appointments. What that means is your most important donors should not get a letter or an email blast. They need to be contacted in person, and we'll get to that towards the end. Here's some other kind of some tips or some practical suggestions as you if you're somebody that's where do I start? Well, identify the 10 or 15 major donors who have yet to give this year. So maybe you go through your system and you notice that you've got some major donors and specifically target them. Identify 50 donors and make the face-to-face calls and ask them for their year-end gift. People love a phone call this time of year. Don't let reluctant volunteers hold you back. What that basically means is still ask. Warm up your donors before the ask. That means telling a story, those kinds of things that we've already talked about. Make your appeal a letter attractive and easy to read. and then follow up the appeal letter with a phone call. So let's say you've identified 25 donors that you would like to see give. You send them a story, you ask them to give. It's okay to follow up and say, hey, this is so-and-so from this organization. I just want to make sure you got my letter. If you have any questions, and boy, we sure would love to have you be a part of this campaign this year. If this is an area that you're a little uncomfortable in or not quite sure how that works, again, we can give you maybe some additional suggestions and tools to do so. You'd be really surprised, though, for those of you who might feel like, oh, I don't want to pressure people. A follow-up call is not necessarily pressure if there's a relationship already happening, kind of thing. And then plan 1 or 2 email follow-ups the very last 2 days of December. So in other words, if you did an email campaign and you want to take that list and pull out the people who already gave and then send them people reminders saying, hey, we just got a couple days left in December. We'd really love for you to be a part of the great work of our organization or be a part of this team. Okay. Just want to touch real quick, the good, the bad, and the ugly of Giving Tuesday. Why I called it the good, bad, and the ugly is that I feel like there's a lot of nonprofits that feel pressure to do it, but they don't know why they should do it. They just know it's out there. Giving Tuesday is going into 4th, 5th year now, maybe. There's a lot of literature out there on it. Some people say it's not as effective. Other nonprofits say they raise money. Other nonprofits say they don't. What I just want to say about Giving Tuesday is go to this website if you want, #Giving Tuesday. I encourage you to participate in it just for the greater good of giving, but also because you never know. If anything, it just might attract a few more people to come check out your website and know that you're a part of it. Like I said, there's a lot of articles out there about if you really drill down the amount of money. There's a lot of money being raised in Giving Tuesday. You shouldn't feel badly if your organization has not raised a lot of money, but the point is that it's a good way to focus and get folks kind of off of the material side of the holidays and really into philanthropy. So I like their website. If you don't know anything about Giving Tuesday, it's the Tuesday after Black Friday and Cyber Monday. It's a chance for nonprofits and churches across the country to spend one day and encourage people to make a donation. So this is where your online pages and all of that come into play. So like I said, I'm a believer in it. I would encourage you to do it. But, that's all I'm going to say on that. Just a final kind of last thoughts. Again, we talked about your donation pages needing to be short and a call to action. Some of this we've already covered, but I just kind of want to, again, emphasize your online donation page. Let me give you an example, one I really like. This is one from the Special Olympics. Notice here, I want to just kind of make a couple comments about some what I would say good practices on a donation page. Again, if you don't have software to do this, you need help with this, maybe that's something Applos can help you with, or at least guide you to somewhere that can. You should not have to be paying a lot of money to create something like this. This is not a web page. This is not a website. This is an online donation page. Faces can often draw attention from a call to action, where in this case, the child in the background is looking towards the donation form, which I really, really like. I thought that was a really powerful kind of way to focus from the child to the actual donation page. A donation amount is pre-selected, so users can, go through the next steps. So you see that they give them some good suggestions. And then I like this a lot. We do this here at Applos, where you provide a checkbox that is pre-selected, where the donor can take care of the transaction fee. This is a little hard to read on this particular slide, but basically this says I'd like to help cover the transaction fees. No matter what you use, there's no such thing as a free credit card processing company. As far as I know, if you know one, let me know. Whether it's PayPal, no matter whatever, there are going to be some fees. And so one of the nice things you can do now is allow the donors to help cover that fee. And it used to be a lot of pushback, but I think more people are finding that that's kind of how how it works with fundraising. So some final thoughts on year-end giving. As I said on the onset of the webinar, I think year-end giving really should be an important part of your overall fundraising strategy. I call it the Super Bowl of fundraising. I do think that with all the hustle and bustle of the holidays, a lot of nonprofits, unfortunately, they gear down. Some even close their shops at the end of the year. Everyone's a little different, but I would really challenge you to maybe think that through a little differently. Personally, I think January is a better time to slow down a little bit because it's post-holiday. It's usually one of the lower giving times. Late January, people are getting ready they're kind of getting their taxes ready. They're regrouping for the new year. So I would really suggest that you ramp up through December, kind of go down a little bit in January. Here's some resources. These are just a few. These are some websites and some experts in the field that I have a lot of respect for in this field. Particularly Gail Perry and Amy Einstein are both really great thinkers in the area of year-end giving, appeal letters, marketing strategies, those kinds of things. This guy right here at the bottom, John Hayden, is excellent as well. So with that, we're going to do some Q&A and give you guys a chance to interact. And hopefully you're walking away with a few tips and suggestions, maybe something practical that you can use for year-end giving. I would say if you're not doing anything, start small, try one thing, and then build from there on that. So let me see. I'm going to go up with Latrice, who asked, what if you are new and you don't have an impact story yet? I think you just tell them that, hey, we're brand new, and this is something that we're hoping will happen this year. So I think if you're a brand new organization and you don't have that impact story, maybe you do a story about why did the organization start? Most organizations start out of a need in the community or something like that. So it's okay if you don't have that superstar story yet, but you still are doing some work. So try to highlight that. William, if using an email system like MailChimp to communicate, what is the maximum number of MailChimp messages in the November-December period before people turn you off? Is one per week too many? It's a really excellent question, William. I'm going to say one per week is probably good. I think what's frustrating for me is that when I give to a campaign and they still continue to email me, that makes me feel like it's impersonal. So what I would suggest you do is you change it as the weeks go and you update that list. So for example, if you send it out to, let's just say 150 people, and 15 of those people gave the first week, make sure you take those 15 people off that next email. Kind of thing, because you're going to say, all right, already I gave kind of thing. So I think one a week is actually really good. I wouldn't do any more than probably one a week. So welcome your feedback on that as well. By the way, during the Q&A, I'm kind of starting to leave my information here. So if you do have follow-up emails, sample campaign letters, I will provide one for you if you're interested. All of you if you registered for this webinar, you will get a link, again, probably early next week, saying that the recording of this is available, and I will include some resources for you. You're welcome, Karen. Is having suggested donation amount buttons in addition to the manual amount field and online donation page more effective than having the field for the donor to enter their amount? Yes. I think you always want to suggest donation amounts, no matter if it's snail mail or online, and give them another amount. Because a lot of times, if you don't give any amount, they might just put $10. But I think if you start with suggested amounts, you can always I think that is more effective. Hands down, I don't think any expert in this would disagree with you. Let me see. How are we doing on time? Okay, good. We're going to keep going here. And hello, I'm needing an easy project timeline template for my year end. Is that easy to plug and play? At least a couple samples, planning timelines. That would really help. My schedule. So you're looking for a timeline to kind of help. Brian, if you would email me at the email here on the slide, and I can probably give at least head you in the right direction. What Brian is looking for on this question, I didn't read it all the way, but he's looking for a timeline to kind of schedule your campaign kind of deal. And I think I might be able to give you something on that. But yes, I do have a sample for you. You're welcome, William. You're welcome. Great. Okay. Yeah. So that, unless there's any other questions, we're almost at the end of our time together. Again, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules. I have up here, if you like this webinar and you're interested in some additional ones, my November webinar is going to be on nonprofit digital marketing. I've got an expert marketing guy. He's going to come in and share about how to do things like text to give programs and what kinds of things you want to look for. Of course, you can always interact with us on my own Twitter or at Apples. And of course, here's my email. We welcome your feedback and just want to wish you luck in your year-end giving. Again, no matter the size of your organization or your budget, I would really encourage you to try something, even if it's simple as an email to 15 donors. Get something going and tell your stories. So with that, I want to thank you for being with us. Wish you guys a great rest of your Thursday. Happy fundraising, and we look forward to talking to you guys again. You all have a great day.